guys, today we're going to go through my new song Modwonk, which I've just released on Anjunadeep. Here's the arrangement, so let's dive in. I started with really the drums, which I often do. I just kind of get a feel for what's the rhythm of the track going to be, what's the feel going to be. This is the main kind of the driving force of the track. It's just kind of a wall of shakers and hats. There's not a clap or a snare that hits on the two. Sorry, it's just it's more of a shakery vibe. So lots of little. So really, what I'm often doing is just trying to find the beginnings of loops. I'm not too interested in when things start sounding like a loop, because then it sounds like a loop. But just often right at the beginning, before you get to the snare or clap, and often loops, you just get that lovely little bit at the beginning. So it's a bit like how you would sampling an old record if you're doing that. But just again, you could program that stuff, find that hat. But I like that noise. I like that in between space between the notes. Often fill this in some texture, and that's. It's about finding those textures. I think one of the other main bits in this, which is kind of buried inside this but does give it its momentum, is this. It sounds quite harsh in the mix there, it sounds quite hard, but it's what I kind of like doing sometimes is using ride cymbals, which often they have a long tail to them, a long release, and then shortening them in the sampler. And what you get means you have this kind of a malleable hat, which you then have the option to bring out. Again, just giving that kind of flexibility, and it's a nice texture, giving that kind of something you get. And if you're using a hardware drum machine, you have that ability to kind of to bring it out. So I often create these racks. Enabled in that allow me to do that, and then just process them up. Usual maintaining it. There's a lot of limiting going on there. Sidechaining it then just to give it that movement. You could do that with velocities, but simplicity. The sidechain's nice there. There's this white noise sequence coming from Massive. Delay, kind of ping that off. I like this wall of percussion, this wall of groove. But then I needed something. That was the kind of the to kind of get me into the track. Things started kind of coming together when I was playing around in Arturia Buchla, and this is a synth I use a lot. I spend hours in this thing, and it all sounds terrible, and then suddenly it all starts coming together. And I love that sense of not really knowing 100% what's going on, and just kind of tinkering, playing, and finding something that you really, really connect with, and then you can move forward with a song. Started with kind of this MIDI, bum 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 bum. And I found really when I started playing with the decay and the gate section of the Arturia is when it really started to kind of do cool things. Alarm sounds almost. I then create a quick arrangement, which is actually pretty close to what the song is now, but that just gives me a kind of a structure to kind of to record to. I say this a lot. This is nice to me, especially when recording stuff, is to have a destination, have somewhere where kind of you go to. So I kind of created this rough breakdown, rough structure, which you can kind of see here, and then I got the audio here, which is yeah, this is the final audio from that, and then I went to town kind of processing that. So straight away there's a little bit of OTT. Again, I'm just kind of carving out some of that kind of taking away some of the lower mids, bringing up the higher frequencies. A little bit of smooth from Baby Audio, which just kind of playing with the lows, taking out some of the harsh frequencies in the 3K, bringing some life back with Satin. I love this as a saturator. It just brings life to sounds, and then some limiting, just controlling that up. And that was that's the feel. That was the kind of the, okay, right, I've got something cool here that I can make a track from. Okay, so that. And then everything else was just a case of, right, what can you add to that to kind of accentuate that Buchla? Came around really quickly, and it was just kind of a lot of sample hunting, going through my hard drive, going on the internet, seeing what I could find that was pitchable, that worked, that just added, that complemented that sound. And the first things that really kind of I found was just searching, looking for kind of chord stabs or individual chord hits, and this is when these guys came into play. Beautiful dub chords and different sound, different feel. They all offer something a little different. So I kind of put together that sequence with the Buchla, with the kick, and this really was the beginning there. And then I think that's when the big guy came in. I was like, suddenly realized this song has no bass. Again, but just didn't want to be too overpowering. I like the kick and the bass with the shakers and the Buchla doing its thing. It needed something simple. So I kind of playing out different sounds and came across a really nice kind of UK, future bass kind of sound, which was this guy here. Woo! Which was super cool. So that was together. That was. That got me really excited. I think at that point I ended up posting that on Instagram because I got so excited about it, because it just felt like, felt fresh. So again, searching for more samples, trying to find things, trying to find some sort of vocal sound. Again, trying to find some kind of vocal sound, but it didn't need to be anything too precise with this. I didn't want it to be an obvious vocal track, but feelings of the sense of a vocal, but the sense of a vocal. So I had these guys. So I found that, and this has been. So it's just these little moments there in the track. So those guys. So in the track. And the key to those guys was just the layering of the vocals, so that, you know, in its normal state. And then I was just playing it different pitching. Usually, you know, coming down a fifth, you get some lovely, you know, different take on it. And that was nice. Playing around with the formant down here, you know, in the complex pro mode, you can play performance more. Each one of those, you know, I like to play that as the track goes on, because it's just like a different vocal performance, even though it's from the same static sample. So again, when you're layering the fifths, the minus fifths and the twelfths, you always get this kind of cool, I find a very meaningful sound. So they go throughout the track, as you can see, kind of lifting it really. They add that here. So again, it's a very kind of hypnotic song. It's a cruiser. She's cruising along. If I just solo those, the chords and the vocal, and there's some more reverse vocals up here. A lot of clicks in there. Yeah, I mean, so it became this, you know, it's all about, for me, it was the moment going into the, you know, so it's all about the moment, you know, once I had this great sound here, that, you know, the track needed to keep moving into that. There's these really cool little bits here. Again, I don't know what they are. These are kind of vocal, again, pitch down vocal, the granular sounds, kind of breath, which we're really giving. How can I pitch that up? Kind of female voice thing. Again, getting that, dialing in the formant when you start pitching stuff up and down, so kind of really makes such a difference. But this is, I love these little bits before the break, because it kind of goes, it builds and it goes dun 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 dun. So really important little moment there, which was having a lot of fun. Just kind of, how can I accentuate it more, and ended up, you know, it's a bit more satin. And that's there. Mid-side processing here. Again, focusing on the midsection whilst bringing out the sides. And again, OTT, I found this track really lent itself to that. There's a lot of samples going on, and with them carry all these different textures that are kind of embedded within the samples. Sometimes that can be annoying. You want to get rid of them, but I felt with this is more artifacts, the better. Again, in the breakdowns, there's these kind of walls of very loopy stuff. Again, just kind of adding to the texture, a bit like how the shakers are just this kind of bed of groove. A lot of the sounds on top are just kind of looping and kind of doing their thing. These are pitched. Okay, you can tell here the formant's right down. Really important. Together. Again, just right under the going back to the bass. What's on here? So if I freeze it, yeah, that's coming out of Serum. So if I play that. Because it already has a, that sound already has an LFO on it, but I wanted to kind of lock in with the kick, and so I kind of really heavily side changed it, there, so it fits with the groove. So if that was really important, and again here. What's going on here? Yeah, again, just kind of bringing up, saturating that kind of upper, lower mids to kind of bring out the harmonics there, just to kind of, again, try and get it to pop through as much as possible. There's a little bit of limiting on there. I found it was already kind of quite processed inside Serum, but it kind of just needed to kind of bring it. I found more. I think, yeah, on this, if I actually limited it some more. Sound like that needed to be controlled a lot. Okay, yeah, there's no limiter here. So yeah. So and what is going on here? So all these little utilities here, that's me kind of coming in the next day and being like, ooh, maybe it should go up, maybe it should go down. And sometimes I find it's nice to, that's like my memory there of what I did, so I can kind of go, oh, that was yesterday, that was today, what did I do yesterday? And sure, I could probably just end up with one utility here, but that's the kind of the thought process there of kind of gain staging and looking after volume as I go along. And especially when you kind of come back into a project with fresh ears, like, what did I do yesterday? If you didn't have anything there, sometimes it's just like, I don't remember. So that helps me. And then under here, I thought there was there is that. Yeah, there's an operator here just providing a deeper sub. I don't know if you can hear that. And that was just a kind of knock did that. I don't think the Serum was quite getting, so the kind of the foundation of that kind of earthy feel wasn't quite hitting. So the operator there with the Serum was just making sure the system is nice and full and had to control sub for that. And then moving into the breakdown of the song, really the main thing that happens is so these samples here, so the samples that kind of go throughout the track, these little vocal, the vocal sneeze. These vocals here, they come from a larger, a larger phrase, which in the breakdown I kind of unravel. It's frozen at the moment because it's killing this computer. But so underneath it, when I again started playing around with different pitch combinations. of slowly getting kind of darker and darker. What's on there? So yeah, this guy needed some attention because the sample was really not very nice. So straight up, it just needed a lot of de-essing. Probably use something like Soothe, but I just kind of just getting rid of this harsh. More. Just trying to carve it out. What was essential. I think more, especially more as I was bringing in more of these. The lower pitch versions means meant that that space wasn't necessarily needed in the original first kind of take. Really, as you find, you start pitching these things down, you end up doing the same kind of processing, but further down, undoing it at the top, and you suddenly start chiseling further down into the frequencies. But yeah, I like the way this guy, and then they're all kind of put together into a group, which has its own kind of processing on top. It has this. I think what's cool is having this little auto pan here, kind of wiggling it from side to side. That was. Giving it some nice movement. And then there's, I think, kind of the main effect, or the main kind of feel to it is Valhalla Shimmer, which is giving it a kind of the crystallized, kind of pitched, granular feel. Again, more saturation there, and then the limiter here, and a limiter. Each of the tracks are being heavily limited, so I think that was just kind of just going to control the little peaks popping through. What is this? Break Atmos. Yeah. So yeah, when I was talking about how much I love this arrhythmia, this is a bit like a drum fill in a way. So this break Atmos sound, it's a little bit like a drum fill, in terms of but not that. It's the kind of the song goes. It's an important sound. So when I was just looking at here in this group here, there's a dedicated sidechain that's taking this break Atmos, and if I look at here, because there's a lot of atmospheres and stuff building up on top of this, but I wanted to make sure the dun, 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 cut through. So if I do that. So yeah, so this compressor here is just that's just bringing that whole group down in volume, so that other kind of that fill can come through it more. Yeah, very subtle, but makes a difference. Very subtle, but makes a difference. So subtly on the master, there's just a reverb, kind of pushing a lot of these breakdowns and moments. I like that. It's just just the wet to the dry, the really abrupt kind of, and then tighten it in. Where we go. It's really subtle in here. I mean, my goal is to get this guy to smile. My goal is to get this guy to smile as much as possible. But unfortunately, on this track, he didn't really get much of a grin on him, which may mean I should have used it more. But that's kind of going throughout the track, just kind of say, look, it's kind of pushing those moments. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that gave you a bit more of an insight in terms of the song, in terms of the different kind of elements and my thought process, maybe perhaps in terms of putting a song together. Yeah, and if you like the track, please make sure you go and go find it, go listen to it in its full and high quality, high definition sound.